In my reviews, I cover a lot: practicality, safety, performance. But what if all of those things are important to you, but above all else, you just want a car which is breathtakingly beautiful? Well, then today's offering could be for you. Behind me, very kindly, John Gross in Ipswich have lent me the all-new DS4, and I think it's the best looking hatchback come crossover that you can buy on the market today. So if you want to find out everything you need to know about the DS4 Cross and Standard, then make sure you keep watching. And if you like new car reviews and car content, then hit that subscribe button. So why did I sound so confused when I said crossover come hatchback? Well, that's because the DS4 comes in a couple of variants, which includes a hatchback car and also the one that I have today, which is the Cross. But what's the difference? There are three variants to pick from. The first, simply named DS4, a performance line focusing on sporty styling, and this, the Cross. Then a few specification levels within these variants. Focusing on the Cross, as that's what I'm driving today, it has a more rugged styling in the way of plastic on the bumpers and side skirts, and it also features roof bars. However, there's no more clearance or capability than the regular version, and the suspension settings are just the same, although there's an option of all-weather tyres and multiple surface traction control. So with no real ground clearance and no extra space, is there a reason to have a crossover DS4? It doesn't even have four-wheel drive. Yes, you can add on that anti-slip, but does it really justify having a cross variant? Have we just got obsessed with the SUV market? Now, the answer to that is undoubtedly yes, but it does give us more choice, and it gives the DS4 a little bit more competition, because the hatchback car is in competition with the Mercedes A-Class, the BMW 1 Series and the Audi A3. But by making it a cross, it opens it up a little further. That means it's now in competition with things like the Lexus UX and also the BMW X2. But does this car have what it takes to take on them German rivals? Let's find out. So let's talk about DS's trump card, something they are very good at, and that is design. Some of their models in the past have been a bit hit and miss, but most recently, cars like the latest DS3 Crossback, the DS9, the DS7, they are stunning, and the DS4 is no exception to that. In fact, I think it's one of the most beautiful DS's yet. It has that sharper, more square, boxy feel about it, and I really like it. Now, there's no doubting, especially finished in this new gold paint colour, that the DS4 does appeal to a certain feminine market, but actually if you go for the performance line cars, it does give a much more masculine feel about the vehicle. But I love it. These new daytime running lights which sweep all the way from the headlights. Now, it's really hard to see when I unlock the car, but it does have a really beautiful greeting light, and you also have this pink tinge in these LED headlamps. It's great, isn't it? I really love it. I don't know if you noticed, but it also has those pop-out door handles. Now, these have been featured on DS's for a little while now, and though I think they're good, they're starting to look just a tiny bit dated. But the thing with the DS door handles is they work very well. They always unlock properly. When they're tidied away, they're nice and neat, but actually they're quite easy to grab as well. There are things that I like and dislike about the rear of the DS4. Now, this car actually reminds me a lot of the new Peugeot 308, so I'm probably going to compare them a little bit during this video. And for starters, the rear actually reminds me quite a lot of the Peugeot with those kind of folds, but it's not quite as bulbous. I really like the swooping rear spoiler, which also has these connected gloss black parts. That's really nice. This detailing along here with the diamonds, fantastic. Little details which just stand it out from other cars on the market. You've got these great diamond rear lights on the DS, which actually, when the brake lights are on, light up and give you a really sparkly effect. Love that. You've got the offending rear tailpipes at the bottom there. See those? Yep, they're not real, they're fake, just like on a lot of Stellantis products, which is a real shame. I really don't think it's necessary. And I think in this Cross model with just a bit more black detailing, they stand out even more. Come on, this is a hybrid model. It doesn't need to have fake tailpipes. Let's just do away with them altogether. Inside the boot of the DS4, it's pretty competitive actually, and how you get into the boot is just under here, so it's easy to find, but it does give it a slightly strange feeling of it's not quite shut. Once open, inside here you'll find 430 litres of space. That's pretty good. The BMW 1 Series has around 380, along with the Audi A3, so it's a big improvement. However, if you do go for this hybrid model, that does shrink slightly to a bit less. And the one disappointing thing about this car is it doesn't have an adjustable boot level, so there's a really high load lip, but at least you do have this chrome scuff plate. The seats on the rear are split 60-40 with no option to have them split 20-20. You know what I'm trying to say, my maths is not great. You can't have them split into 3 like you can on the A-Class, BMW, different cars like that, which is a little bit of a shame. They seem to have got some things right with the boot, but just not quite everything. Oh, and also, it's quite heavy. Space in the back is slightly larger in some of its rivals, but I'm actually perfectly comfortable back here. As someone who is 5'5", I've got a decent amount of legroom and I've also got a nice amount of headroom. The fact that this headlining is white means it brings in quite a lot of light, and the shape of these seats mean I've got a pretty good vision out of the front window. These windows aren't the biggest, but they're definitely bigger than they were on the DS3 Crossback. I've got a nice amount of amenities as well. I've got a pull-out armrest with 2 cup holders. I've got a little removable part in the middle, and I've also got somewhere to pop my mobile phone. The higher trim levels also get a ski hatch so that you can load longer items. I've got 2 USB-C charging ports, and it's pretty good that that transmission tunnel is relatively low. Though, just like on the Peugeot 308, it does come quite far back, and that means it's difficult to fit your feet behind it, meaning it might be a struggle if you wanted to put 3 people with slightly longer legs in the back, but children should be perfectly happy. I personally think that DS have nailed the interior of this DS4. I've always appreciated the quirky details of DS's, the pearl stitching, the watch strap leather, and even that gold detail that you could get on the dashboard. But the DS4 feels just a bit more grown up. It's going to appeal to much wider of an audience. It's not so busy, there's not so much going on, and that's not a bad thing. They've managed to keep all of that class and interesting details of the DS without it being just a bit too much for some people. DS have answered some of the grumbles of previous DS models, and rather than having the window controls along the centre console, they're now on the door instead. And I really love these doors. They've got such a nice mix of materials used. You've got this kind of scale effect which matches the dashboard. Now, I'm not too sure on this. It's definitely going to be something that some people might not be impressed with, but at least there's lots of different options to choose when it comes to your DS. You've also again got the chrome detailing to match the centre console, and you've also got this nice swooping leather wrapped part that you can pop your hand on to open and close the door. I really like it. Now, they might have answered the question of moving the window latches onto the doors. But unfortunately, you do still have climate control dials which are built into the screen. But this infotainment screen is actually really easy to use. It's nice and clear, and you do have some good physical shortcut buttons. You've got a little shortcut button here for your home. You've also got buttons along the bottom for your climate control dials, and you've got a couple down here to get you some shortcuts to your car options and charging options. You've got the physical start button, which is in a slightly more appropriate setting of the middle part here, rather than being on top of the dashboard like it is in some DS's. They've just made it a lot more user friendly. And then you've got the addition of this fantastic little screen down here. All except the cheapest DS4 have another screen called Smart Touch. This acts as a handwriting pad and a map zoom control. More significantly, you can use it to assign 6 shortcuts, each accessed via a directional swipe. You assign them to a favourite destination, radio stations or phone numbers, or particular displays and settings. Okay, it probably is a little bit of a gimmick, but it's a nice gimmick nonetheless. You've also got a nice section to pop away your mobile phone, and it's deep enough so your phone will fit all the way in, and you can still rest your wrist on this little section here. You've also got a nice leather wrapped armrest which is split in 2 parts, and it opens up to reveal a decent amount of storage. Also, for the first time ever, just like on the Peugeot 308, the DS4's glove box is a real sized glove box. Oh, it really is the simple things. When choosing your DS4, there's a nice amount of engines to pick from. There's 5 available, 3 petrols, 1 diesel and 1 plug-in hybrid. The entry-level petrol is the PureTech 130 with 128 brake horsepower. Now, if that sounds familiar, that's because that's the same petrol engine that's fitted on the Peugeot 308 that I've recently test drove. I really liked that engine. It was great around town, but I did find it lacked a bit of oomph when you put your foot down, and it did make a bit of a noise when it was doing it. But there's 2 more petrol engines available on the DS4, which is brilliant. There's also a PureTech 180, which gets 178 brake horsepower, and then another PureTech 225, which gets 220 brake horsepower. Now, this is really good to see, and it's a much better lineup of engines if you want a slightly quicker petrol. And I think those engines will answer that noise that it makes when you pushed it too hard on the PureTech 130. If you're only doing short journeys, then the smaller, cheaper engine will be better all round. But if you wanted a bit more of a kick, then those 2 larger petrols could be the answer. If you cover lots of miles and if you're doing a lot of motorway driving, then the diesel could be a very viable option. Again, it's the same HDI 130 129 brake horsepower engine that's fitted in the new Peugeot 308. And it's sure to receive you great fuel economy whilst also being powerful enough for day-to-day driving. If you're looking for a company car purchase, or do short journeys and you're willing to fork out a little bit more, then you could go for the DS4 E-Tense. Now, this is the 225 engine, but it's also got an electric motor, which can drive in fully electric for up to 29-30 miles in full electric alone. Now, this is fantastic if you're doing those short journeys and you can plug it in overnight, as it's sure to save you a lot of money in the long run. But it's also brilliant for company car drivers, as it's got a reduced bic rate. And it's actually the 221 brake horsepower hybrid engine that I'm driving today. And so far it alleviates any of the issues that I had with the PureTech 130 engine. It's really powerful and smooth in its power delivery. You've got that sharp burst of power as long as you've got charge in the car, but even then when it runs out, when you pop your foot down, because it has that more powerful petrol engine, it doesn't make as much of a racket as the PureTech 130. Not to say the 130 wouldn't be good for a lot of people, but I think if you can afford to go for the hybrid, then it's a great option. It's also reasonably quick as well. It will do 0 to 62 in 7.7 seconds. Now that's nearly a second faster than the BMW 1 Series 118i M Sport. It's not quite as quick as the Audi A3 TFSI E, but it's still pretty competitive compared to those cars. The only negative it has compared to its German rivals is it's not quite as engaging. The DS4 E-Tense and just the DS4 in general has been set up for a comfortable and enjoyable ride, and you can feel that out on the road. It is so smooth and so quiet, and it's also pretty good around town in terms of light steering. But once you get up to slightly higher speeds, that's a little bit where the engagement is lost and it feels much more vague on the road. And that comfort setup is apparent from the moment you sit behind the wheel of the DS4. This car is actually fitted with some pretty big technology. I mean, like Rolls-Royce technology, something that's found in its larger, bigger brothers, and also most recently that I've driven in the Citroën C5X, and that's active road scan. So what the DS4 will do is it will use its cameras to scan the road ahead if you're in comfort mode and if you're below 60 miles per hour. And then it will change your suspension setup to deal with the road ahead, which I think is seriously clever. The DS4 is a great new offering into the hatchback market, but is the styling just a bit too feminine to appeal for a wider audience? Let me know in the comments down below. All I do know is I'm absolutely smitten. It looks fantastic, it's luxurious on the inside, it drives well, and thanks to that hybrid technology, it's also very economical. It certainly would turn my head against some of the German rivals, but would it turn yours? Let me know. If you have enjoyed this video today, go ahead and give it a massive thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos from me, then make sure you're subscribed to Auto Social UK. If you are in the Ipswich area and you want to test drive a DS4, then make sure you get in contact with John Gross today. Until next time guys, see you later.